Hello and welcome to Let's Learn. So today we'll be looking at the new Form 4 syllabus. So we'll be looking at Maths Form 4, Chapter 3. Right, so it's only a summary because I find that if I give all the answers in the textbook, then I think all the school teachers in the whole of Malaysia are gonna kill me. Alright? Well, not exactly kill, but they're gonna hate me. Okay, because anyway, you need to learn from practices. And I don't really have a lot of time as well. I would like to focus on SPM questions to be able to help the SPM students, because they're already having a handicap because of coronavirus, right? So I hope you all are staying safe and not simply running around without a face mask, right? Remember to wash your hands. I know it can be drying, but you need to wash your hands, right? Even for me, my skin actually became so dry that you could peel it off, and I did that, and some parts of my fingers are bleeding, or it was bleeding. But I still continue to wash my hands as frequently as I can. Not because I'm OCD or anything, but because I'm living in a house with old people in it, right, with senior citizens. So I don't want to accidentally bring COVID-19 into the house and expose them to it, because as you know, very young children as well as senior citizens, they if they're exposed to COVID-19, there is a higher chance that they will die from it, right? They will suffer horribly and they'll die from it. So if you have your grandparents around, just think about them, right? We can't be selfish. We always have to think about the people that we care about. Alright, now let's go into the topic. So logical reasoning, I'm not sure whether do I need a paper or not, but then it's just in case. So basically we have statements true or false, or arguments, right? So for true or false statements, for example, negation, we will always have no or not, right? So in this example, 12 is a multiple of 5. So negation will be 12 is not a multiple of 5. Right? This chapter, I don't know why we even have it. I used to learn it. I find it kind of funny and ridiculous at the same time. But they do know how to confuse you. So remember, always read the question carefully. If you don't really get it, read it again. Make sure that you fully understand what they're talking about. Right? Especially when it comes to this chapter, they really love confusing people. Alright, so compound statements, we have or and. Right, so for P, statement P, 12 is a multiple of 5. Statement Q, 12 is a multiple of 6. Right, so you can say 12 is a multiple of 5 or a multiple of 6. Or, if you're using and, then it will be 12 is a multiple of 5 and a multiple of 6. Right, then in this case, of course, one of them is true and the other one is false. Right? If it's or, that means as long as one of the statement is true, then this whole thing here is true. Right? So the first one would be true, and the second one, because it's n. If it's n, that means 12 must be a multiple of 5, and 12 must also be a multiple of 6. It cannot be only one of them, but it must be both of them are true. Then and only then the compound statement is true. Okay? Now implication, if P then Q. P if and only if Q. Right? So if then would mean that if we have P, then only Q will happen. Right? The if and only if will be, we have P, if and only if we have Q. Right, so example, statement P. 12 is a multiple of 3. Statement Q. 12 is a multiple of 6. So we use if then. If 12 is a multiple of 3, then 12 is a multiple of 6. That is true. Right? If we use if and only if, 12 is a multiple of 3. If and only if, 12 is a multiple of 6. This can also be true. But because it's only if and only if, I would call this a false, because if 12 is a multiple of 3, it can also be a multiple of 9, right? So you have to be very careful when you read it. Now converse, if Q then P. Inverse, if not Q then it's not P. Or contrapositive, if not Q then not P. That means you just switch the positions. Right, so example, if 12 is a multiple of 3, then 12 is a multiple of 6. Converse, if 12 is a multiple of 6, then 12 is a multiple of 3. Okay, that's true. Inverse, if 12 is not a multiple of 3, then 12 is not a multiple of 6. Okay, then contrapositive, now they flip it. If 12 is not a multiple of 6, then 12 is not a multiple of 3. Alright? So, sometimes just by flipping the position, right, instead of P first and then Q, it becomes Q first and then only P, it can actually make the statement become false. Right? So it really depends on the situation. So that's why you have to read and fully understand. Right? Try to, boost your English a little bit. Or if you're learning it in Bahasa, then boost your Bahasa a bit more. Right? I know it's not easy to learn maths and science in Bahasa because, trust me, I learned that was what they taught us in school. Right? Now for arguments, we have inductive arguments, strong and quotient, as well as deductive arguments. Alright, so for inductive, you have premise 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 times 1 minus 1 is 1, 2 times 2 minus 1 is 3, 2 times 3 minus 1 is 5, 2 times 4 minus 1 is 7. So the conclusion will be 2n minus 1, where n equals to 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's inductive argument. Now for deductive argument, this is where you will see in a lot of deductive movies or TV shows. Alright? You make specific conclusion based on the general premises. So premise 1, all A is B. And premise 2, C is A. Therefore, the conclusion will be C is B because all A is B. Right? So the example here would be all multiples of 6 are multiples of 3. Premise 2 will be 18 is a multiple of 6. So therefore, the conclusion will be 18 is a multiple of 3. Alright? Now, premise 1, if P then Q, P is true, therefore Q is true. If P is false, therefore Q is false. Alright? Then, let's look at the example. Premise 1, if X is a multiple of 6, then X is a multiple of 3. Premise 2, 18 is a multiple of 6. So the conclusion will be 18 is a multiple of 3. Right, because they are true. Okay? Now the last part. For premise 1, if P then Q, then premise 2 not Q is true. In conclusion, not P is true. So this one is kind of the opposite of the previous one. Alright, so premise 1, if X is a multiple of 6, then X is a multiple of 3. Premise 2, 17 is not a multiple of 3. Therefore, 17 is not a multiple of 6. Right? So it's just basically common sense. If, you feel like it's kind of weird learning it, as well as you kind of understand it and yet don't understand it at the same time. It's common sense, right? Once you butcher it, you cut it up into tiny pieces so that you can understand it bit by bit, it will become simpler. Okay, so yeah. I don't really need the paper. Okay, so I hope this explains a little bit about chapter 3, and I hope you'll be able to catch up with your lessons. Alright, so hope to see you in the next video then. Bye!